stunning losses in Colorado. State Attorney General Phil Weiser upsets Senator Michael Bennet in the Democratic primary for governor.
People want to know that they're electing someone who's in this work to fight for them, who they know cares about them. And the goal of our campaign was to break through. We broke through a lot of negative ads. We broke through a lot of noise because I believe in the power of people.
And then you had Milot Quiros beat a nearly 30-year incumbent Congresswoman Diana DeGette last night. Quiros, the latest Democratic Socialist to win their primary.
We believe that fundamental change can and will happen if we fight for it. If we organize and show no fear in standing up for what's right. That is the message that Denver has sent to both parties, to Donald Trump, and to the entire country.
Zolan, I want to start with you because back a few months ago when there was infighting in the DNC itself, there were all these people that were like, I'm taking my toys and going home, right? Like David Hogg, I'm going to go spend my own money. Justice Democrats, we're going to recruit our own people. There was this real sense that there was going to be money spent elsewhere by different recruiters for different reasons. And I want to show the viewers right now how well Justice Democrats are doing, as it turns out. Primary winners, I think I'm looking at a count of up to 8 faces here. What are they doing differently than the DNC?
Yeah, it's interesting because that fight over spending, I do think, represented a broader fight over the direction of the Democratic Party,
right,
and who should lead them. And what we're seeing with this series of wins, the ones you just outlined, but also we're coming a week after
and those are in
Mamdani's
Colorado,
sweep
New
in
Jersey,
New York,
California, even Texas.
Right, across the country. I do think the themes in these races speak to they resonate with something broader in the Democratic base across the country, right? In the last presidential campaign, I would often hear from Democratic voters, they didn't feel people represented them. You just highlighted somebody who won a generational race, right?
Yeah.
She was born a year after the incumbent won her first race.
But with the views that come with that in some cases.
And that brings us to Israel as well. We have seen Israel and the issue of whether the Democratic Party will support U.S. support for Israel, that has resonated both in New York and these races.
I think I'm also fascinated by that because what happened with Kamala Harris and Biden is they truly struggled to talk about Israel and Gaza when that fight was at its height. Then you have someone like Milot Quiros. I want to play one more thing from her, this Colorado congressional candidate who had a win, because she uses an argument that you wouldn't have heard from the Biden administration last fall.
When I wrote a letter defending students' rights to protest the genocide in Gaza, my law firm told me, take it down or you're fired. I didn't flinch. We will not wait to put an end to the politics of the past, to get big money out of our politics, and to reject corporate PACs and AIPAC. And no, we will not wait to end the genocide in Palestine.
So every key word, that's a problem for Democrats and a problem especially for people who are concerned about the rhetoric around Israel, punctuated by an actual air horn. I want to play one more thing, a voter. And then, Antoine, I want you to talk out of this.
I like to see that she has more socialist ideals.
I think people are tired of our tax dollars being spent overseas and on bombs to kill children.
I'm anti-AIPAC, and so I just wanted to vote for someone that was standing up against Israel, and I knew that the incumbent was for Israel, so I voted against her.
People like Quiros and the DSA in general are presenting more like compelling arguments about how to make this country better for everyone.
Couple of things. We're having a generational conversation and an ideological conversation in these primaries. I think the common denominator is that people are frustrated, people are pissed off, and we collective Democrats are against Donald Trump in the Republican majority. How we talk about these issues has defined these primaries. But I will make the continued argument that the most important thing for Democrats to remember is 218 is the name of the game. You can talk boldly and loudly about all of these policies, but if you cannot govern, if you do not win, and losers do not legislate. And when we talk about the way that some of our more progressive candidates who are winning in deep blue districts, the issues they are talking about are going to require them to have to compromise on what they believe if they want to respond to what they campaign.
Or required you and the rest of establishment? Because that's where the money is going to have to come from.
Well, I don't consider myself establishment. I consider myself just a Democrat. I think we've put these labels on folks, and I think that has been part of the somewhat division you see within the primaries. At the end of the day, when you go into the United States Congress, you're labeled as a Democrat versus Republican. We should anchor that there. But the second point is what we're seeing across the board. I think this is probably true in the Republican primaries. It's easier to vote against something than it is to vote for something. So people are voting for who has been in charge and who they feel like are leading
Terry,
the
can I
parties.
have you answer that? Especially to this point, I'm looking at, like, for instance, the post-response to the Supreme Court upholding bans on trans athletes. This kind of follows what he's saying. It's easy to say no. No is easy to put in a headline. It's easy to put it in an ad.
No, that's exactly right, Audie. And I think that candidates like this that are more radical, where the mask has come off, they're winning in deep blue districts, right? Zohran Mamdani is not running in Virginia. He's running in New York City, and the same thing here. It's going to be interesting to see how these new, more radically left-wing candidates fare in terms of the upcoming midterms, but it's also going to be interesting to see how they change the coalition for the Democratic Party. When President Trump came on the scene back, 10 years ago, he changed the makeup of the Republican Party, and I could see a lot of these higher propensity voters.
Can I play an example?
Please.
Here's an example of someone who thrives in the Trump era. The Colorado candidate for governor on the Republican side. These are the kinds of questions and back and forth he's dealing. I just want to play this for the audience before we go.
Your campaign website falsely claimed that you had rescued more than 45,000 women and children. You claimed that you once called in a U.S. military airstrike that killed 70 ISIS fighters. You perform exorcisms, commanding demons to come out of people. Your claim that your abusive stepfather forced you to kill a man when you were 7 years old, is that the only person you've ever killed?
Well, I would say as a child, yes.
It feels like the takeaway for Republicans has not been radicals don't need them. It seems like it's like certain people are more than encouraged by the current environment.
I would ignore people like this.
Why? He's running for governor.
No, I know, but I'm from Illinois, right?
Oh.
And so what happens in these deep blue states where like Republicans basically give up on is
which is
it's
not
a free
Colorado,
for all.
by the way. It is not deep blue, but go on.
Colorado's pretty blue, Audie. But look. I would look more to the states like Virginia, New Jersey.
But then why run a guy like that?
Because a lot of the serious people are not running in Colorado. If I was a serious candidate for GOP governor,
not just run a guy, but he's leading in donations in that race as
money.
well.
Money, donors, probably not from Colorado are giving him money.
And what I will say is that the people, the actual voters, they feel like both establishments are screwing them over. They feel like they're getting behind further and further, and that's the Democrats and the Republicans.
Let's get right to CNN senior political analyst Mark Preston for the latest on all of this. This is now something of a national trend we're seeing, Mark.
Well, John, it's certainly not a one-off, and we've seen it over the past couple of weeks. There's been so much focus on New York City and Zohran Mamdani over the past year since his election, but we've seen that the progressive wing, the very liberal wing of the Democratic Party, is starting to push back against the establishment. If there was ever a generational shift in what we saw last night in Colorado, where Diana DeGette, who was considered a progressive, in Congress, losing to somebody who is even farther to the left, shows you right now, as the Democratic Party has gone through 4 years of Donald Trump, again, has decided to push back against this anti-establishment. We've not only happened again in Colorado last night, we've seen it happen in Washington, D.C. We saw it happen in New York City. We've seen it happen in Georgia. We're seeing it happen all across the country right now. It's not a wave. Let us not tell anyone out there that it is a wave. But the fact of the matter is the Democratic Party right now is undergoing this whole transformation right now. And we're seeing these younger, more aggressive, progressive Democrats take on the establishment, John.
Yeah, look, you see an incumbent fall in a primary every now and then, but to see 3 lose in a week, that is remarkable. And you hear from almost any established Democrat, and they'll tell you this is where the energy in the party is right now.
No, it totally is. And, this pushback by the progressive wing of the party didn't just happen overnight. This goes way back to the Clintons. This goes back to the 90s, where Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton pushed the Democratic Party more to the center. We saw Barack Obama come in. For 8 years, the Democratic Party was unified. They had something to rally around. We saw Bernie Sanders take on Hillary Clinton back in 2016. That was not well accepted by the Democratic establishment. We saw Bernie Sanders run again in 2020. Look, what has happened is that the progressive wing over the past 4 to 6 years has tried to work with the establishment. They've tried to work within the bounds of the Democratic Party, and it hasn't worked. And that's why we're seeing this pushback right now.